Get ready, Staten Island.
The Ferry Hawks are back at SIUH Community Park July 7th to the 12th for a 6-game series against the High Point Rockers. Tonight, first pitch is at 6:30. It's Thirsty Thursday with $5 Bud and Bud Light drafts. Friday, July 10th, first pitch is at 7 p.m. May the Force be with you on Star Wars Night with post-game kids glow around the bases with special lightsaber training packs.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.
Sunday morning. Well, almost every Sunday we have Senator George Borrello, from our New York State Senator from Chautauqua County, and he wants to talk about energy today. And Senator Borrello, tell us about it.
Well, first of all, I love your energy in saying the word Chautauqua. We really got you.
You taught me how to do it.
Well, thank you for that. Well, look, John, we're experiencing this extreme heat in most of New York State, and at the same time, the New York Power Authority, the New York State Independent System Operator, are saying that New York is a historically low safety margin when it comes to our electrical grid. In other words, how much power do we have to supply the needs of New Yorkers? We saw that, during the last heat wave in New York City, the governor, the mayor of New York City telling people to turn down their air conditioners and set it at 78 degrees and all these other things, because New York State has a failed energy policy, and this could be incredibly dangerous. I'm sure there's many of your listeners that remember the massive power outage. I believe it was 2003 in New York City, and that could happen again because we actually had more power in New York State than we do right now. We have reduced the amount of baseload energy, which is reliable energy that you can count on. They want to shut down these peaker plants, which also kick in when energy supply is low, and the governor sees this danger. Unfortunately, her Democrat colleagues, the people who are saying we should continue to shut down reliable energy and try and replace it with intermittent green energy, they don't see it. And New York State and New York City in particular could suffer some very devastating consequences if there isn't some common sense brought to our energy policy.
You're absolutely right. And this energy policy, I don't want to be wasteful. I never want to be wasteful. But some of the things they did cost America trillions of dollars. It cost New York State probably tens of billions of dollars. There's got to be some common sense. And you know how I feel about those windmills. You know how I feel about those solar cells. Tell us about what you had a conference last week. What did you guys cover?
We actually did a nuclear power symposium in the city of Dunkirk, which is a small city in western New York along Lake Erie, one of the cities that has applied for potentially a new nuclear power facility. Look, nuclear power is clean, it's zero emission, it's baseload energy, and I think it is the future. There's a lot of stigma out there. There's a lot of people that are talking about things that are either false or outdated information. And despite supporting nuclear power like I do, that is a long time off. Nuclear power is, in some cases, a decade or longer before we can have a power plant up and running again. We need baseload power now here in New York State. I've said it on your show before. We've been in a very dangerous game of energy musical chairs. And that's what we talked about at this symposium, the fact that we've taken away baseload power and we haven't replaced it with anything here in New York State, which is why we have, again, according to the New York State Independent System Operators, historically low safety margins for our energy supply. And what's the solution that's being offered by the mayor and the governor? Well, you know what? Turn off your air conditioner. Don't plug in your electric appliances. Don't plug in your electric car. All those things that make our economy run and that keep people comfortable and safe. They're telling you, to shut them down. And that's right now.
I remember in the 1980s, those are the same people that says, make sure you have a shower thing that doesn't put out too much water, and make sure you don't flush your toilet. It's horrible. The planet Earth is renewable as long as we don't abuse it. But we people have to learn that. Amen.
Yeah, 100%. And here's the other thing too, John. We looked at natural gas which is a very affordable, reliable way to generate electricity. It's very abundant in New York State in so many different forms. We looked at that as the bridge fuel to the future. In other words, let's use natural gas, much lower emission than coal, and use that to power New York State. We remember it wasn't long ago that we were touting having natural gas-powered, city buses, things like that, because it was a cleaner, more reliable form of energy. That all went out the window. And you know what, John? You don't tear down a bridge before you build a new one. And that's what we've done by shutting down all these power plants and having no plan to replace them. And I don't know what the people in New York expect, but I expect not to live like I'm living in a third world country where energy is expensive and unreliable. And that's where we're headed. We're headed down the path of being a third world nation here in New York State if we don't restore common sense to our energy policy and reject this whole socialist idea that we're going to, essentially have a takeover of everything, including power generation, because it doesn't work. We've seen it fail everywhere else. Every country like Venezuela, which used to be a prosperous country until socialism came to town. And the list goes on and on. We need to push back against socialism, which is going to further devastate New York's energy reliability.
I agree with you 100%. Well, Senator George Borrello, thank you for coming on again this Sunday morning, and let's keep fighting for our city, our state. I want our city and our state to survive. Thank you, and we'll talk again real soon.
Thank you again.